Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. Two tails, one head, Yang Yang. Three heads, Old Yang. Three heads, Old Yang. Three tails, Old Yin. Two heads, one tail, Yang Yin. The bottom trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. This is the trigram. Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants, whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as solid, broken, broken. This is the trigram. Zen, thunder. Thunder is shock, upheaval, and the spark of the new. In old Chinese belief, thunder slept in the earth over winter and erupted from it in spring, awakening living things into new growth. Thunder is our basic drive for renewal. He inspires initiative and decisive action. He is the stimulus that sets things in motion. He is the eldest son in the trigram family, the first connection of heaven, potential, with earth, realization. Yang makes itself known here, emerging into the field and beginning to grow. Thunder belongs to the east and to spring. Zen, thunder, above Xun, wind or wood, gives us hexagram. $32. Once our third, fourth, and fifth lines transform from their either old yang or old yin to their young opposites, so 3 and 4 will change to young yin, 5 will change to young yang. Once that happens, our bottom trigram will transform to a broken, solid, broken, which is con, water. Jeebus. Pulled up the whole tablecloth dealy. All my wands are sitting on. Con, water. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure, and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. The top or outer trigram of our supporting hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken, which again is con water. Con water above con water give us hexagram 29. We'll be getting the titles to our hexagrams from I-ming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. And I-ming himself is a badass, in my opinion. Hexagram 32, I-ming, translated by Thomas Cleary, translates to constancy. Hexagram 32, our primary hexagram, constancy, single-minded application, perseverance in real practice. our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. I-ming calls Mastering Pitfalls, hexagram 29. Once one of the 4 timeless hexagrams, restoring the celestial within the mundane. Get it? Best hexagram to get when you're playing the game Pitfall. We will start by reading from Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future, which is a nice introductory I Ching commentary and also quite profound. Hexagram 32, Hilary Barrett calls lasting. When we approach the hexagram and consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. Key questions. What inspiration are you making real in your daily life? How can you continue on the same path even as you adapt? Who will you become by persevering in this? Oracle. Lasting, creating success, not a mistake. Constancy bears fruit. Fruitful to have a direction to go. Whatever becomes part of the heart's circling journey will last. We bind things, influences, ideas, people into the fabric of our lives by integrating them into the daily round of our way of living so that they are carried with us through change. This is an active creative process, keeping the channels always open for exchange between inspiration and reality. Lasting tirelessly on your own path, whatever landscapes it travels through, is not a mistake. What lasts bears fruit, not because you arrive at some final destination, but because through all the changes you persevere in your intent and inspiration, and you are always finding ways to make it real. Image, thunder and wind, lasting. A noble one stands firm and does not change his bearings. Thunder and wind are endlessly changeable, but they are part of a larger lasting cycle. The noble one's inner nature, subtle as the wind, translates into action as decisive as thunder. So however the environment changes, everything he does will always travel in the same direction. Sequence. Lasting follows from hexagram 31, influence. The way of husband and wife cannot fail to endure, and so lasting follows. Lasting means enduring. Influence is a traditional hexagram for betrothal and hexagram 32 for marriage. You are attracted towards something enduring, so influence can be fixed into life like dye into a cloth. Then the lasting patterns of life are infused with vitality. And hexagram 29, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 29, Hilary Barrett calls repeating chasms. Picture of a canyon or something. Key questions. What are you sure of in your heart when nothing else is sure? How can you flow on and through the dark? Oracle. Repeating chasms. There is truth and confidence. Holding your heart fast creates success. Movement brings honor. These are pits where you fall into the deep, dark waters, flowing on into the swirling, unknowable dark. The chasms repeat. There is no detour that would take you round them, so you must practice and learn the way of these deep places. First, there must be truth and confidence. Truth to the present moment, because this is simply how it is, and trust in your inner knowing, so you can be unreservedly present with an unshakable grasp on the essential core. In these deep waters, there is nothing solid out there to hold on to. No external security, no way to orient yourself, and so you hold fast to your heart. This is a way to create success, staying in communication with creative source even in the chasm. In movement, you find a different kind of security, one that depends on your heart, courage, and commitment. This is the truest test of your convictions, when you have no way of knowing where your leaps of faith might land. Sitting in the bottom of the chasm does not bring honor, action does. Also, it's a way to be sure of yourself as an individual after everything else has fallen away. You act and you become skilled in flowing through the steep-sided chasms. Image. Waters flow on and reach the end, repeating chasms. A noble one acts with constant character and teaches things by repeating. Many small tributaries flow together to create a broad river. Many small commitments flow together to create a powerful character. A noble one understands that just one extraordinary leap of faith is not enough. By acting consistently, he creates a continuity of principles that people can depend on when all else is in flux. Such repetition is a way of conveying a message to others and sometimes also of convincing and changing yourself as you learn more skillful ways of thinking. This is like the water. It carves out a course and creates its own momentum. Sequence. Repeating chasms follows from Hexagram 28, great exceeding. Things cannot end with excess, and so the chasm follows. The chasm means falling. In Hexagram 28, the house's ridgepole was buckling. Now it has given way. You overburdened or simply outgrew the external framework that supported you, and now you are falling. Pair. Repeating chasms are paired and contrasted with Hexagram 30, clarity. Clarity is above, the chasm is below. These are natural opposites, above and below, fire and water, light and dark, waking and dreaming. Yet together they create a single landscape. Chinese tradition says that after its journey across the sky, the sun is bathed in the river at the foot of the leaning mulberry tree. The sun itself needs to repeat the chasm. Next, we will look at the changing lines 3, 4, and 5 of our primary hexagram 32, lasting. These put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They take precedence over all other elements and are the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 3 has the general context in emerging identity, facing a transition, with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 5 has the general context, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Hexagram 32, lasting, changing line 3. Not lasting in your character may be accepting a shameful gift, constancy, shame. Unsure about binding yourself to a personal commitment with no firm promise to guide your steps, you follow whatever path looks most promising and doubt and second guess your decisions as circumstances change. Whatever rewards you gain this way will feel shameful because they are not given to your true self. How could they be when your true self was never completely present? If you don't fully realize the gift of your own self, anything else you receive is tainted by that failure and cannot be integrated into your path. Carrying on in this way brings humiliation. Changing line 4. In the field, no game. You're hunting, and what you are hunting for is not here. You are in the wrong place. Staying here longer won't change that. You may have a great deal invested in this field, having spent a lot of energy in mapping out a context that should, in principle, yield those much desired results. Nonetheless, there aren't any. This does not mean there is no game anywhere in the world, or that this field is empty of other possibilities, only that if you want to succeed in your search, you will have to move on into a wider landscape beyond it. And changing line 5. Lasting in your character with constancy. For the mature woman, good fortune. For the young man, pitfall. To last in your character is to be consistent. Follow through on your commitments and keep your promises. Whether or not this is a good idea depends on what kind of character is involved. The mature woman knows herself and works to bring ideas to fruition in lasting results that will be a true image of her nature. This is how she establishes herself in the world. The young man is still inventing and discovering his character. His nature is still in flux and cannot be circumscribed within relationships and commitments. He may not know where his commitments will lead. He may not even stay the same person he was when he made them. He needs above all to allow space for his character to change, so he isn't forever defined by impulsive, youthful decisions. Which of these characters might you be in relation to your question? Or if you find that you contain aspects of mature woman and young man together, how might they coexist in better balance? Next, we will look at what I-ming has to say about the matter at hand. Hexagram 32, I-ming calls, once again, constancy? Is that what he calls it? Yeah. Constancy. Constancy is developmental, impeccable. It is beneficial to be correct. It is beneficial to have a place to go. Explanation. Constancy means long persistence. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is thunder, active, and below is wind, penetrating. Acting gently as the breeze, active yet serene, neither identifying nor detaching. The mind steadfast and the will far-reaching. It is therefore called constancy. This hexagram represents genuine application in real practice. It follows on the previous hexagram, fire. Fire means illumining the inward as well as the outward, aiming at profound attainment of personal realization, so that illumination is all-pervasive. But the path of pervasive illumination is not possible without a constant mind. Constancy means single-mindedly applying the will. The longer, the stronger, not becoming lazy and slacking off. Thereby one can comprehend essence in life. So there is a path of development in constancy, and it is also possible to be impeccable thereby. However, though constancy can lead to development and impeccability, it is only beneficial if constancy is correct. If it is not correct, abandoning the real and entering into the false, then it is not developmental and is faulty. The blind practitioners in the world who go into deviant paths, taking what is wrong to be right, aggrandizing themselves, boasting of their practices and cultivating vain reputations, striving all their lives without ever awakening, most assuredly are capable of constancy, but they are constant in aberrated paths, not constant in the right path. If you want to seek eternal life in this way, you will on the contrary hasten death. When your time is up, you will have no way out and cannot escape the blame. how could you gain good fortune? Therefore, constancy in the developmental, impeccable way is only brought to fruition by correctness. Even so, the benefit of correctness of constancy is permanently the benefit, preeminently the benefit in correctness of constant practice. So the text says, it is beneficial to have a place to go. The benefit lies only in constant practice of what is correct. What is correct is true principle, which is the Tao of body and mind, essence and life. This path appropriates yin and yang, takes over creation, sheds birth and death, escapes compulsive routine. This is a great work involving constancy and persistence. It cannot be accomplished in day and a night. It requires flexible, gentle, gradual advance, ascending from low to high, going from shallow to deep, step by step, treading in the realm of reality. Only then can one be effective. Generally speaking, a great affair which endures long unchanging requires great work that endures long unceasing before it can be achieved. The constancy that is beneficial if correct is the constancy that is beneficial if it is going somewhere. But if you want to practice what is right, first you must know what is right, investigating truth, reaching the basis of essence, thereby arriving at the universal order. The work of comprehending essence and arriving at the universal order of life is all a matter of thoroughly penetrating truth. And hexagram 29, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence the direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 29, mastering pitfalls, or double pitfall. In mastering pitfalls, there is truthfulness. Thus the mind develops. There is excellence in practice. Explanation. Pitfalls mean danger, as of a precipice or pitfall. Mastering pitfalls means getting through danger. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, dangerous, and below is also water, dangerous. Going from one danger to another, yet able to get through successfully in spite of danger. It is therefore called mastering pitfalls. This hexagram represents the presence of white within black, restoring yang within yin. It follows on the previous hexagram, nourishment. Nourishment means seeking fulfillment by emptiness, seeking the true yang that has fallen in a pit. In human beings, after heaven and earth interact, the one point of original yang runs to the palace of earth. Earth is filled in and becomes water, and heaven changes into fire. At this point, yin traps the yang, the celestial root is obscured, and the mind gets involved with things. Though near to reality by nature, people become estranged from it by habit, descending lower and lower by daily repetition of habit. They fall into a state of ignorant obstinacy and do not know how to stop. However, if one practices evil, one becomes evil. If one practices good, one becomes good. It is simply a matter of how people habitually act. Practice of evil is a way into danger. Practice of good is a way out of danger. Getting out of danger requires that one believe it is dangerous. Belief rules the mind. If one can believe in the danger, then one will not be seduced by external things. Practicing good, one can then be good. As it is said, once you reform, it is the same as if you were originally thus. Therefore, in mastering pitfalls, there is truthfulness. Thus the mind develops. If there is truthfulness, then the mind develops. Without truthfulness, the mind does not develop. The mind with truthfulness is the mind of Tao. When the mind of Tao becomes manifest, the human mentality does not arise. Sane energy grows. Aberrant energy recedes, and one can thus go in and out of yin and yang without being constrained by yin and yang. But believing there is danger requires one to practice so as to get out of danger. Believing but not practicing is like not believing. Once one can believe and can practice without hypocrisy or deception, practicing truly, one improves daily with daily practice, rising from lowliness to loftiness, gradually learning a state of exalted illumination, developing one's nature to the fullest extent and realizing one's purpose in life, returning to the fundamental without difficulty. Therefore, the text says, there is excellence in practice. If one practices this, one can rise. Without practice, one does not rise. Knowing this is only valuable when one puts it into practice. And we will look at our changing lines 3, 4, and 5, which put a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They're the most focused part of the reading and take precedence over all other elements. Changing line 3 has the general context an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 4 has the general context the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 5 has the general context strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. Hexagram 32, Constancy, changing line 3. If one is not constant in virtue, one may be shamed. Even if right, one is humiliated. Explanation. As long as one is strong and remains correct, one is still determined in practice of the Tao. But if strength is not balanced and one is in a hurry to achieve attainment, advancing keenly yet regressing rapidly, this is not being constant in virtue and so being shamed. What is the shame about? It is the shame of setting the heart on virtue, but not being able to be constant in virtue. Setting the will on what is right, yet being unable to constantly practice what is right. Following the path in practice, yet giving up along the way. Even though one be correctly oriented, one is humiliated. This is constancy with a beginning but no end. Changing line 4, fields, no game. Explanation. When strength is in the body of action, the time is for doing. This is like having fields to plow. If one then dwells in a position of weakness, the will inactive, constantly embracing the Tao but unable to put it into practice, that is like empty fields with no game to watch for. This is constancy without any action. I can't get no. Changing line 5. Constancy in virtue. This righteousness is good for a woman, bad for a man. Explanation. When one is flexible and balanced, keeping to one's lot calmly and constantly, without thought or effort, sincere and single-minded, this can be called constancy in this one virtue. However, fidelity to this single-mindedness is suitable for cultivating quietude apart from society, but it is difficult to thereby comprehend essence and reach the destiny of life. Therefore, it is good for a woman, but bad for a man. This is constancy in solitary cultivation of tranquility. We will also look at the commentary section for each of our hexagrams, which is maybe slightly more alchemically focused. Hexagram 32 is called Perseverance. in the commentary section. Thunder above, wind below. Thunder and wind are perpetual. Thus does the superior person stand without changing places. Perseverance is persistence. Above is thunder, below is wind. When thunder is in motion, wind follows along. Thunder and wind grasp each other. With wind, the sound of thunder reaches afar. Following thunder, the blowing of the wind is powerful. This is the image of perseverance. What superior people see in this is that just as the nature of thunder is strong, while the nature of wind is gentle, strength and gentility balancing one another so as to be able to stir myriad beings, in the same way there is strength and gentility in people, which require one another so as to enable people to persist in carrying out the way. Thereby they stand without changing places. To stand means to be decisive, to have stability of concentration. One's place means the path that is to be traveled, the way that is to be carried out. There are students who are decisive in doing things. There are those who are decisive but do not know the proper way to go. And there are those who know the way to go but eventually slack off after an earnest start, alter their plans along the way, and change their places. All of them lack the determination to persevere consistently, so they are unable to practice the eternally unchanging Tao. Superior people consider the nature and life of mind and body to be the one important matter, and they know that to accomplish the Tao that is eternally unchanging requires a permanently unchanging will. Emulating the strength and vigor of thunder and the flexible gentility of wind, they single out what is good and hold to it, gradually advancing in an orderly manner, growing ever stronger the longer they persevere. Wealth and rank cannot make them dissolute. Poverty and ignominy cannot move them. Authority and arms cannot suppress them. Everything in existence being void of absoluteness, they rest in the appropriate place, thus able to reach profound attainment of self-realization, in which the earthly and celestial are combined, lasting forever without corruption. And our supporting hexagram 29, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. In the commentary section, it's called double water. Water above, water below. Water travels double water. Thus do superior people consistently practice virtue and learn how to teach. Double water means water reaching from here to there. Above is water, below is water. This is water traveling from here to there, from there to here, traveling, flowing together. This is the image of double water. What superior people see in this is that the work of sages is twofold, involving both self-development and development of others. Self-development is the practice of virtue. Development of others is teaching. If virtuous practice is inconsistent, it is hard to enter the universal Tao. If teaching is not learned, students will not understand. Therefore, they work on virtuous practice day by day and month by month, becoming familiar with the old and aware of the new, increasing their efforts as time goes on, aiming for profound attainment of self-realization. Then when it comes to teaching, they gradually develop guidance, making clear presentations and subtle indications, leading students further and further on until they penetrate thoroughly and are free from doubt. The practice of virtue is the study of body and mind, nature and life. It is a very refined and subtle science, in which the slightest deviation can produce an enormous loss. It can be accomplished only by constancy and consistency, thoroughly investigating its principles, fulfilling nature and arriving at the meaning of life. Teaching is a matter of receiving from forebears and educating successors. It is very urgent and necessary. If instruction is unclear, people will be misled as to the course they should pursue. One can develop others only if one learns how to teach, which involves searching out the profound and the recondite and clarifying that which is obscure. The work of teaching is based on the practice of virtue. Teaching means teaching the practice of virtue. Only if one is consistent and constant in the practice of virtue can one learn and practice teaching. If one cannot be consistent in the practice of virtue, then teaching will be baseless and unguided. When one is consistent in the practice of virtue and afterward learns how to teach, then what is consistent and constant in oneself is what is learned by others. This is like water traveling from here to there. It is all the same water, able to flow everywhere. Next, we will look at James Dekorne's Gnostic Book of Changes, which he has compiled several I-ming commentaries into one helpful place. He has put it into a PDF online that anyone can access, download, print out, go and look at. So it's helpful because it means you don't have to buy a bunch of commentaries. You can use this to look at several of them at once. And he is a practitioner of the Tao himself and also puts in his own helpful editor's notes throughout, as well as notes and paraphrases sections at the end, which sums the whole thing up. And he gives quotes from people like Carl Jung and things like the Kabbalah. Hexagram, it'd be helpful if I turn to the correct hexagram. Hexagram 32, he calls consistency. Other titles might be duration, the symbol of constancy, the long enduring, constant, persevering, standing fast, continuity, constancy in the midst of change, holding firm. A quote from D.F. Hook, get yourself into a fixed routine like the orbiting planets. Judgment, leg. Consistency means successful progress without error through firm correctness. Movement in any direction is advantageous. Wilhelm/Bain's duration, success, no blame. Perseverance furthers. It furthers one to have somewhere to go. Blofeld, the long enduring, success and freedom from error. Righteous persistence brings reward. It is favorable to have in view some goal or destination. Ritzema/Karcher, persevering, growing, without fault, harvesting trial, harvesting, possessing directed going. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of continuity and endurance. It emphasizes that continuing on and renewing the way you are following is the adequate way to handle the situation. To be in accord with the time, you are told to persevere. The image, leg, thunder over wind, the image of consistency. The superior man stands firm and does not change his method of operation. Wilhelm/Bain's thunder and wind, the image of duration. Thus the superior man stands firm and does not change his direction. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes thunder accompanied by wind. The superior man stands so firmly that he cannot be uprooted. Ritzema/Karcher, thunder, wind, persevering. A chunsu or chief son or superior person uses establishing, not versatility on all sides. Clary 1, thunder and wind are perpetual. Thus does the superior person stand without changing places. Wu, a combination of thunder and wind forms constancy. Thus the chunsi or chief son or superior person establishes himself by not changing his post. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Consistency means long continuance. The dynamic trigram of thunder is above, and the magnetic trigram of wind is below. docility, and motive force are in sympathetic communication because their dynamic and magnetic lines all correspond. When the motive power is spent, it will begin again. Hence, movement in any direction is advantageous. The sun and moon are consistent in their illumination, and the 4 sequential seasons are consistent in their cycles of growth. The sages are consistent in their work, and all under heaven are transformed. When we examine this consistent perseverance, the natural tendencies of heaven and earth are revealed. Leg. The subject of the hexagram is perseverance in what is right, or in continuously acting out the law of one's being. It is seen as a sequel to the previous hexagram, initiative. As that figure deals with the correct relations between husband and wife, so this figure treats of the continuous observance of their respective duties. Initiative consists of the trigrams symbolizing the youngest son and the youngest daughter, and shows how the attraction and influence between the sexes is strongest in youth. Consistency, on the other hand, consists of the trigrams symbolizing the oldest son and oldest daughter. This couple is more staid. The wife occupies the lower place, and their relationship is characterized by her submission. Given 2 parties, a magnetic and a dynamic in correlation, if both consistently observe what is correct and natural, i.e. the magnetic submissive and the dynamic firm, then good fortune and progress may be predicted for their course. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. The will to maintain the consistency of the work assures progress in whatever direction it may take. The superior man holds fast to the principles of the work. Wilhelm's title for this hexagram is duration. I feel that the word consistency best evokes the meaning of the figure. In an existence consisting of continuous change, the only things that have duration are the principles upon which change is based. To adhere to these principles is to maintain consistency. Implicit here is a consistent balance of forces. Consistency in the work means neither consistent action nor inaction, but an appropriate combination of the 2 principles as required by changing circumstances. The Confucian commentary alludes to this characteristic of the work when it mentions the sun, moon, and changing seasons as examples of forces which maintain their consistency within a context of continuous change. Just as the moon at night reflects the light of the hidden sun, so in the work the ego is always magnetic in relation to the dynamic self. A moon that thought that it was the source of its light would be egregiously deluded, despite superficial appearances to the contrary. So too the ego that thinks that its powers come from anywhere but the self. A quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest. Motives and standards of choice are not invented by the ego, but are structured by the actualization of archetypal predispositions through personally acquired value standards. Suggestions for meditation. Note that all of the lines in the hexagram are generally unfavorable except 2 and 5, and that when they both change places, the hexagram becomes number 31, initiative. There's a profound lesson here which is best appreciated by meditating on the associations implied. The fact that each hexagram is the inverse of the other should not be forgotten. Next, we will go to our supporting hexagram 29, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 29, James Dekorne calls danger. Other titles might be the abysmal, the symbol of sinking, water, the abyss, gorge, repeating entrapment, double pitfall, multiple danger, double water, the deep, dark forces, the perilous pit. A quote from D.F. Hook, may not be as bad as it sounds, but whatever happens, remain true to yourself. Judgment, leg. The trigram of danger here repeated shows the possession of sincerity, through which the mind is penetrating. Action in accordance with this will be of high value. Wilhelm / Baines, the abysmal repeated. If you are sincere, you have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeeds. Blowfold, abyss upon abyss, grave danger. All will be well if confidence is maintained and a sharp hold kept upon the mind. Activities so conducted will win esteem. Lu, water doubled, danger. Sincerity leads to success, peacefulness in your heart and mind. You will succeed in your actions. This hexagram means danger, misfortune, or entanglement in a difficult situation. You should be both careful and patient. Do not struggle with all of the difficulties around you. Ritsama/Karcher, repeating gorge, possessing conformity, holding fast the heart, growing. Movement possesses honor. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a dangerous situation you cannot avoid. It emphasizes that taking the risk without reserve, the action of gorge, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to venture and fall. Slothnacy, repeated entrapment. There is a return. The appended heart, receipt. In motion, there will be elevation. Clary 1, in mastering pitfalls, there is truthfulness. Thus the mind develops. There is excellence in practice. Clary 2, in multiple danger, if there is sincerity, the mind gets through and action has value. Wu, entrapment indicates there is confidence. The heart of the matter is that it is pervasive. Actions taken in its accord will be commendable. The image. Leg. The image of water flowing on continuously forms the repeated trigram of danger. The superior man, in accordance with this, maintains constantly the virtue of his heart and the sincerity of his conduct, and practices the business of instruction. Wilhelm/Baines, water flows on uninterruptedly and reaches its goal. The image of the abysmal repeated. Thus the superior man walks in lasting virtue and carries on the business of teaching. Blowfold, this hexagram symbolizes water flowing on and abyss upon abyss. The trigram con is usually inauspicious. Here it occurs in duplicate as the upper and the lower trigram. Thus the implication is that we are beset by grave dangers from which, if we can escape them at all, the utmost skill and confidence will be required to extricate ourselves. The superior man acts in accordance with the immutable virtues and spends much of his time instructing others in the conduct of affairs. Lu, water flows unceasingly into the depths, symbolizing water doubled. The superior man constantly preserves his virtue and practices his task of education. Ritsama/Karcher, streams reiterating, culminating, repeating gorge. A Chunsu or chief son or superior person uses rules actualizing Tao to move. A Chunsu uses repeating to teach affairs. To actualize Tao, realize Tao in action, power, virtue, ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Clary 1, water travels, double water. Thus do superior people consistently practice virtue and learn how to teach. Clary 2, water comes repeatedly, multiple danger. Developed people practice teaching by constant virtuous action. This is in perfect accord with the Tianti Buddhist teaching of knowing how to get through an impasse, the method of making an impasse itself into a way through. This is also the method of skillfully using natural ills. Wu, water comes time and again. This is entrapment. Thus the Chunsi or chief son or superior person practices virtuous conduct and reviews didactics. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Danger repeated shows us one defile succeeding another. This is the nature of water. It flows on without accumulating its volume so as to overflow. It pursues its way through a dangerous defile without losing its true nature. That the mind is penetrating is indicated by the dynamic line in the center. Advance in accordance with this will be followed by achievement. The dangerous height of heaven cannot be ascended. The difficult places of the earth are mountains, rivers, hills, and mountains. Kings and princes arrange by means of such strengths to maintain their territories. Great indeed is the use of what is here taught about seasons of peril. Leg. The trigram of danger, which is doubled to form this hexagram, is the symbol of water and means a pit, a perilous cavity or defile with water flowing through it. The trigrams consist of a dynamic central line between two magnetic lines. Together they symbolize danger, how it should be encountered, its effects on the mind, and how to escape from it. Liang Yin says, water stops at the proper time and moves at the proper time. Is not this an emblem of the course of the superior man in dealing with danger? The Constancy editors say that to exercise oneself in meeting difficulty and peril is the way to establish and strengthen the character, and the use of such experience is seen in all measures of self-defense. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Commitment to the work engenders a keen discernment of threatening situations and the factors which create them. With the ability to recognize the dangerous elements in a situation, success is assured. The superior man maintains his connection with the self and learns from the trials thus provided. This is one of the first hexagrams that one learns to recognize by name and number, and it is usually received with trepidation. Like the death card in tarot, it is often interpreted as an evil omen, although a deeper understanding reveals opportunity rather than defeat in such images. There is danger and suffering in the work, but probably far less of it in the long run than in an ordinary, unexamined life. Anguish in the service of purpose is ultimately tolerable. It is the incredible suffering of ignorance that is truly tragic. All that pain and sorrow expended on worldly illusions. The Confucian commentary provides some valuable insights concerning the defensive use of danger by kings and princes to protect their realms. To master a dangerous challenge before one can progress to a higher level of awareness is a classical theme of initiation. Without it, the candidate would be destroyed by forces he wasn't ready to confront. This is the purpose and meaning behind the guardian of the threshold archetype. Danger is evil or unfortunate only if one is intimidated by it. Correct behavior in accordance with the principles of the work will always take you to your destination. The self will seldom, if ever, give you a test that you cannot pass if you fully apply yourself. When it seems otherwise, bear in mind that failure often renders better lessons than success, or the illusion thereof. A quote from Jung in Civilization in Transition. A neurosis is by no means merely a negative thing, it is also something positive. Only a soulless rationalism reinforced by a narrow materialistic outlook could possibly have overlooked this fact. In reality, the neurosis contains the patient's psyche, or at least an essential part of it. And if, as the rationalist pretends, the neurosis could be plucked from him like a bad tooth, he would have gained nothing but would have lost something very essential to him. That is to say, he would have lost as much as the thinker deprived of his doubt, or the moralist deprived of his temptation, or the brave man deprived of his fear. To lose a neurosis is to find oneself without an object. Life loses its point and hence its meaning. This would not be a cure, it would be a regular amputation. Next, we will turn to our changing lines 3, 4, and 5 of our primary hexagram 32, consistency. That's what James Dekorne calls it. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. All the lines may not 100% agree with each other in auspiciousness, but we'll take that all in and see what it might mean for us in our own personal lives. Each line has its own general context. That of line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. That of 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. That of 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command.
Constancy, hexagram 32, changing line 3. Leg. The third line dynamic shows one who does not continuously maintain his virtue. There are those who will impute this to him as a disgrace. However firm he may be, there will be ground for regret. Wilhelm/Baines, he who does not give duration to his character meets with disgrace, persistent humiliation. Blofeld, he is not consistently virtuous and therefore meets with disgrace. To continue thus would be shameful. Liu, if he does not continue to improve his character, he will be disgraced. Continuing not to improve brings humiliation. Ritzema/Karcher, not preserving one's actualizing Tao, maybe receiving's embarrassing, trial, abashment. To actualize Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Slofnacy, not making constant his virtue, he perhaps receives its disgrace. Determination is distressful. Cleary too, not being constant in virtue may be taken as a disgrace. Even if one is right, one is humiliated. Wu, the subject does not persevere in principle. He may feel humiliated for his support. Even though he does nothing wrong, he will be remorseful. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, he does not continuously maintain his virtue. Nowhere will he be born with. Wilhelm/Baines, he meets with no toleration. Blofeld, because then no one could endure him. We can bear with an evil man more easily than with one who is liable to behave so inconsistently that we never know what to expect of him. Ritzema/Karcher, without a place to tolerate indeed. Clary too, there is no accommodation. Wu, consequently he will not be welcome. Leg, the third line is dynamic in a dynamic place, but has passed the center position of the lower trigram. He is too active, and coming under the attraction of his sixth line correlate, he is impelled to abandon his place in virtue. The Konghasi editor's version of the commentary is, nowhere can he bear to remain. Notes and paraphrases Su, the man does not maintain an inner consistency of character. His vicissitudes lead to troubles from unforeseen quarters. Wing, your reactions and moods caused by external situations are as unpredictable as these varying circumstances. This inconsistency within the self will bring your humiliation. In turn, this creates a cycle of difficulties. Try to center yourself. Editor, to parody Emerson, a foolish inconsistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. A quote from Gurdjieff, there is nothing worse than to begin work on oneself and then leave it and find oneself between two stools. James Dekorne breaks changing line 3 into one possible succinct definition. Inconsistency and vacillation threaten the work. Get your shit together. Line 4, Leg. The fourth line dynamic shows a field where there is no game. Wilhelm/Baines, no game in the field. Blofeld, no game in the field. Liu, no birds in the field. For a long time one is out of place. How can one get birds? If you receive this line, you should not expect success, even with heightened efforts. Rather, be wary of losing your present position. Ritzema/Karcher, the fields without wild fowl. Slofnacy, in the fields there is no game. Clary 1, fields no game. Wu, he hunts, but his bag is empty. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, going for long to what is not his proper place. How can he get game? Wilhelm/Baines, when one is forever absent from one's place, how can one find game? Blofeld, how can one who remains long out of place hope to gain his quarry? A reference to the unsuitable position of this line, an example of what is implied, is furnished by people whose talents and interests incline them towards a profession quite different from the one in which they are employed. With the best will in the world, they cannot do justice to themselves. Ritzema/Karcher, no lasting whatever one's situation, quietly acquiring the wild fowl indeed. Clary 2. This is not the place for persistence. How can one catch game? Wu. He has not been in the right place for a long period of time. How can he have begged any game? Leg. Line 4 is dynamic in a magnetic place, thus suggesting the symbolism. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. Perseverance alone does not assure success. No amount of stalking will lead to game in a field that has none. Wing. Be certain your goals are realistic. If you try to achieve things that are unlikely, no matter how vigorously, you will still accomplish absolutely nothing. Perhaps you should reevaluate your desires. Editor, there is sometimes an implication in this line that if you would just sit still, maybe the game would come to you. A quote from Jung in VII, Sermons ad Mortuus. The dead came back from Jerusalem, where they did not find what they were seeking. James Dekorne breaks changing line 4 down into two possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you can't find what you seek where it doesn't exist. And B, your present course of action is fruitless, or your speculation is incorrect. Geez. Line 5, leg. The fifth line, magnetic, shows its subject continuously maintaining the virtue indicated by it. In a wife, this will be fortunate. In a husband, evil. Wilhelm/Baines, giving duration to one's character through perseverance, this is good fortune for a woman, misfortune for a man. Blofeld, making a virtue of marital constancy is a type of persistence which brings good fortune to women, but is harmful to men. Here, constancy is used in the limited sense of devotion to husband or wife and willingness to submit absolutely to his or her judgment. Liu, firmly instilling duration in one's character is good fortune for a woman, but not for a man. Ritzimus/Karcher, persevering one's actualizing Tao, trial. Wife, people, significant. The husband, the son, pitfall. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Wu, the subject perseveres in principle. This is auspicious for a woman, but ominous for a man. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, such firm correctness in a wife will be fortunate. It is hers to the end of life to follow with an unchanged mind. The husband must decide what is right and lay down the rule accordingly. For him to follow like a wife is evil. Wilhelm/Baines, perseverance brings good fortune for a woman because she follows one man all her life. A man must hold to his duty. If he follows the woman, the results are bad. Blofeld, a woman follows one lord for the whole of her life, but men have to hold to their public duties. For them to subordinate themselves to women would bring shame upon them. Ritzimus/Karcher, adhering to the one and also completing indeed. Adhering to the wife, pitfall indeed. Clary 2, what bodes well in fidelity for a woman is consistency from start to finish. For a man doing his duty, to follow a woman bodes ill. Wu, she perseveres in playing her devoted role to the very end. Ominous for a man, because he should judge each issue on its merit, and not follow the role of a woman. Leg, the magnetic fifth line responds to the dynamic second and may be supposed to represent a wife conscious of her weakness, and docilely submissive, which is correct. A husband, however, and a man generally, has to assert himself and lay down the rule of what is right. From line 5, it appears that what is right will vary in different cases. The lesson of the hexagram is perseverance in what is right in each particular case. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the man is faithful to tradition and submits meekly. These are desirable virtues for a wife, but not for a man of affairs. He should be flexible and assertive according to the demands of duty and the tenor of the times. Wing, when you are seeking earthly things, apply earthly methods. When your goals are lofty and ambitious, your methods must be inventive and daring. Learn to apply the appropriate kind of effort to achieve the effect you desire. Editor, what appears to be outrageous sexism is seen to be a profound truth when interpreted symbolically. The wife is emotion, the husband reason, and the line examines the crucial division of labor between them. Reason must be flexible or it becomes petrified into dogma. Emotion must remain firm and not give in to impulse or it becomes uncontrolled passion. The circumstances of each situation dictate their proper response. In the flux and flow of life, mindless adherence to precedent is the strategy of shysters and dogmatists. A quote from Khalil Gibran in The Prophet: "For reason, ruling alone is a force confining, and passion, unattended, is a flame that burns to its own destruction." James Dekorne breaks changing line 5 down into one possible succinct definition. Control your emotions and allow reason to make the choices. Reason should at all times be flexible and allow itself to be guided by the requirements of the time. Emotion, on the other hand, must always maintain a firm adherence to the principles of moderation and restraint. We will now get a randomly card-drawn verse from the Tao Te Ching, or verses, while I try to sum the reading up. Our primary hexagram, 32, Constancy, or consistency, as James Dekorne calls it. I think Hilary Barrett called it lasting. We have the hexagram Zen, thunder, over Xun, wind or wood. And this showed someone who, God, this one is so hard for me to remember. Give me just a moment. Bring out good old Hilary Barrett. Hilary. Lasting. Okay, whatever becomes part of the heart's circling journey will last. We bind things, influences, ideas, people into the fabric of our lives by integrating them into the daily round of our way of living so that they are carried with us through change. This is an active creative process, keeping the channels always open for exchange between inspiration and reality. Lasting tirelessly on your own path, whatever landscapes it travels through, is not a mistake. What lasts bears fruit, not because you arrive at some final destination, but because through all the changes you persevere in your intent and inspiration, and you are always finding ways to make it real. And the key questions: what inspiration are you making real in your daily life? How can you continue on the same path even as you adapt? Who will you become by persevering in this? And I-ming, in the text section, says, Constancy. This hexagram represents genuine application in real practice. It follows on the previous hexagram, fire. Fire means illumining the inward as well as the outward, aiming at profound attainment of personal realization so that illumination is all pervasive. But the path of pervasive illumination is not possible without a constant mind. Constancy means single-mindedly applying the will, the longer the stronger, not becoming lazy and slacking off. Thereby one can comprehend essence in life, so there is a path of development in constancy, and it is also possible to be impeccable thereby. However, though constancy can lead to development and impeccability, it is only beneficial if constancy is correct. If it is not correct, abandoning the real and entering into the false, then it is not developmental and is faulty. The blind practitioners in the world who go into deviant paths, taking what is wrong to be right, aggrandizing themselves, boasting of their practices, and cultivating vain reputations, striving all their lives without ever awakening, most assuredly are capable of constancy, but they are constant in aberrated paths, not constant in the right path. If you want to seek eternal life in this way, you will, on the contrary, hasten death. When your time is up, you will have no way out and cannot escape the blame. How could you gain good fortune? Therefore, constancy in the developmental, impeccable way is only brought to fruition by correctness. Even so, the benefit of correctness of constancy is preeminently the benefit in correctness of constant practice. So the text says it is beneficial to have a place to go. The benefit lies only in constant practice of what is correct. What is correct is true principle, which is the Tao of body and mind, essence and life. This path appropriates yin and yang, takes over creation, sheds birth and death, escapes compulsive routine. This is a great work involving constancy and persistence. It cannot be accomplished in a day and a night. It requires flexible, gentle, gradual advance, ascending from low to high, going from shallow to deep, step by step treading in the realm of reality. Only then can one be effective. Generally speaking, a great affair which endures long unchanging requires great work that endures long unceasing before it can be achieved. The constancy that is beneficial if correct is the constancy that is beneficial if it is going somewhere. But if you want to practice what is right, first you must know what is right, investigating truth, reaching the basis of its essence, thereby arriving at the universal order. The work of comprehending essence and arriving at the universal order of life is all a matter of thoroughly penetrating truth. And James Dekorne, just the notes and paraphrases section that he says about consistency is what he calls it. Judgment. The will to maintain the consistency of the work assures progress in whatever direction it may take. The superior man holds fast to the principles of the work. Wilhelm's title for this hexagram is duration. I feel that the word consistency best evokes the meaning of the figure. In an existence consisting of continuous change, the only things that have duration are the principles upon which change is based. To adhere to these principles is to maintain consistency. Implicit here is a consistent balance of forces. Consistency in the work means neither consistent action nor inaction, but an appropriate combination of the two principles as required by changing circumstances. The Confucian commentary alludes to this characteristic of the work when it mentions the sun, moon, and changing seasons as examples of forces with which maintain their consistency within a context of continuous change. Just as the moon at night reflects the light of the hidden sun, so in the work, the ego is always magnetic in relation to the dynamic self. A moon that thought that it was the source of its light would be egregiously deluded, despite superficial appearances to the contrary. So too the ego that thinks that its powers come from anywhere but the self. And a quote from E.C. Whitmont in The Symbolic Quest: motives and standards of choice are not invented by the ego, but are structured by the actualization of archetypal predispositions through personally acquired value standards. Almost sounds like you're balancing in a situation that is changing all the time, and to keep to the principles of change rather than always being active or always being passive. There's a need for changing according to the time. And especially considering our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Hexagram 29, double pitfall, has water above and water below, con water, which almost represents the unconscious or the subconscious. It's danger and solitude and the need for self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. So just like you might imagine, if we had Li, fire, and light doubled, that's like brilliant light. So we have darkness or the unconscious doubled. So it's like was said in James Dekorne's commentary, almost like getting the death card in tarot. Obviously, you can take that in a positive way, as you can with this hexagram, especially since it seems like a lot of what is said about it is auspicious, that you're going to get through, especially considering that we're leaning heavily on our primary hexagram, which talks about balance and acting according to the time. And that meaning that we need to sometimes be active, sometimes passive, and in order to further the work. Our changing lines have 3, 4, and 5. 3 had to do with someone who, let's go back to this again. Who was persevering. Is that what it was? The image depicts compulsive, nope, I'm going to changing line 1, sorry, changing line 3. He does not continuously maintain his virtue, nowhere will he be born with. We can bear with an evil man more easily than with one who is liable to behave so inconsistently that we never know what to expect of him. A foolish inconsistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. And a quote from Gurdjieff, there is nothing worse than to begin work on oneself and then leave it and find oneself between two stools. And he breaks it down into one succinct definition. Inconsistency and vacillation threaten the work. So somebody who starts but can't finish. I think that's what I-ming said about it. And then changing line 4. Basically, the only auspicious lines are 2 and 5. We did get line 5, which is auspicious, but we also got 2 inauspicious lines. Line 4 shows somebody hunting in a field that has no game in it. So it doesn't make sense to stay in the field any longer. Or one of the implications might be that if you wait in the field long enough, that game will eventually appear. Potentially. It says, how can one who remains long out of place hope to gain his quarry? A reference to the unsuitable position of this line, an example of what is implied is furnished by people whose talents and interests incline them towards a profession quite different from the one in which they are employed. With the best will in the world, they cannot do justice to themselves. Notes and paraphrases. Be certain your goals are realistic. If you try to achieve things that are unlikely, no matter how vigorously, you will still accomplish absolutely nothing. Perhaps you should reevaluate your desires. Editor, there is sometimes an implication in this line that if you would just sit still, maybe the game would come to you. That's what I was bringing up. And then a quote from Jung. The dead came back from Jerusalem where they did not find what they were seeking. Don't know what that's in reference to. He breaks changing line 4 down into 2 possible succinct definitions, A and B. A, you can't find what you seek where it doesn't exist. And B, your present course of action is fruitless or your speculation is incorrect. Then, changing line 5, oh yeah, this is the whole issue with the man-woman thing. But I think one of the things here was super great at talking about that. Where was it? Let's just read the editor section. I think that's where he summed it up. What appears to be the outrageous sexism is seen to be a profound truth when interpreted symbolically. The wife is emotion, the husband reason, and the line examines the crucial division of labor between them. Reason must be flexible or it becomes petrified into dogma. Emotion must remain firm and not give in to impulse or it becomes uncontrolled passion. The circumstances of each situation dictate their proper response. In the flux and flow of life, mindless adherence to precedent is the strategy of shysters and dogmatists. A quote from Khalil Gibran in The Prophet, for reason ruling alone is a force confining, and passion unattended is a flame that burns to its own destruction. And he breaks changing line 5 down into 1 succinct definition. Control your emotions and allow reason to make the choices. Reason should at all times be flexible and allow itself to be guided by the requirements of the time. Emotion, on the other hand, must always maintain a firm adherence to the principles of moderation and restraint. It sounds like in a difficult situation that's very dangerous, we are urged through our primary hexagram to maintain balance and to honor the requirements of the time, that being either action or stillness, and strength or flexibility. That being said, when we start something, we need to follow through and finish it, especially as it pertains to the work. When we're talking about line 3. And line 4, we need to make sure we're in the right place. There's a potential that all of our efforts are being wasted if they're in a field that no game exists in. And then changing line 5, we need to not act or react, rather, due to emotions, and not have our thinking and our logic be so firm that it can't change and be flexible with the time. So it's almost like the masculine and the feminine principles here need to be properly proportioned and balanced out and applied in the right scenarios. The last reading I did had hexagram 11, I believe it was, which I think was the Hieros Gamos, or the holy marriage of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It was Kuion heaven below Kun earth. And so heaven supported earth, and the enlivening force of heaven was flowing into the nurturing qualities of earth, and everything was produced thereby and flourishes. So now we're coming into a time where these things might be out of balance in ways within ourselves, within society at large, within our relationships, just in general with the times. And so if we want to be able to see things through that should be seen through, that might be the very first step, is to look at what field we're in and if it's even the appropriate field for what we're attempting. And potentially maybe what we're attempting needs to be recalculated and looked at closely to see if it is even a worthwhile goal or something that we have the strengths within us to accomplish. If it's something that is worthwhile and we don't have the strengths, clearly we need to not start something unless we intend to finish it, in that case, for changing line 3. And then in changing line 5, we absolutely, especially considering the danger of hexagram 29, our supporting hexagram double pitfall, need to maintain correct balance and stability and not be sloshed around, especially with all the emotion of con above con, water above water, this the unconscious principle. When we're dealing with that, it would be very, very, very easy with our emotions to just lose balance and plummet, the double pitfall. And yet, we cannot have such firm, one direction thinking and attitude in our reason and logic that it can't be flexible enough to adapt to the time. So it's almost like the yin and the yang, the yin-yang symbol, where there's white within black and black within white. You need to have the correct balance with that flow circling in order for things to be in harmony. We will read verse 6 of the Tao Te Ching. My copy is by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. I thank you all for being here. I love you dearly. 6. The valley spirit never dies. It is the woman, primal mother. Her gateway is the root of heaven and earth. It is like a veil barely seen. Use it. It will never fail. This is Gingko biloba. Apparently, they grow these kind of trees near Taoist temples and Buddhist temples, and also in Chinese culture. They highly regard it and is used and thought of to balance yin and yang. If you're curious about any of the staves or wands that I use and what they're made out of and what they might represent, I put that in the description box below.